You know, pretty soon it might be illegal to criticize the president of our country, Donald J. Trump. And so while it's still legal to do so, I think it's time that we start really cranking up the heat on this guy. Like, yeah, we jab at him and we cover the news story by story, but I think it's important that we create an archive of information that's easily forgotten over time that can be returned to in the future to take samples of just how bad Trump was. It's easy, like 90%, 99% of the horrible things Trump does become forgotten because we get overwhelmed with what Trump's doing now. It's a very clever technique Trump uses to keep the news media and his opponents overwhelmed. Yeah, he's totally fucking Satan. And so I think while it's legal, we should go ahead and review these 10 lies that Donald Trump has told in the last week alone debunked. Just a fun little takedown of just the persistence of Trump's dishonesty. Just 10 examples from the last week of Trump blatantly, provably, shamelessly lying. Because 10 years from now, or even a year from now, or a month from now, half this stuff is going to be a long, long forgotten dream. So let's find a way to preserve these acts of distrust made by Trump, or these acts that warrant distrust that Trump has done, at least even if it's just from 1 week of his presidency. All right, folks, let's begin. President Donald Trump keeps saying the same false things over and over. Trump's lying has always been notable for its audacity, his willingness to make obvious, untrue claims that can be very quickly debunked, but it has also been distinguished by its repetitiveness, his unwillingness to stop deploying an exaggerated statistic, baseless accusation, or fictional tale after months or even years of debunkings. Trump has for years had a persistently poor poll results on the question of whether he is honest and trustworthy. Part of the reason may well be his unwavering devotion to assertions that many Americans already know aren't true. But his relentlessness also works for him in a way, because news outlets are naturally focused on new material. Some may fact-check a falsehood the first time Trump says it, but not the 10th or 100th time. By shamelessly persevering, I can't read tonight, jeez. Trump can eventually get his greatest hits out there with little pushback. The president's recent public remarks have featured many old lies. In the interest of not letting them go uncorrected, here's a look at 10 debunked claims he repeated over the past week alone. Let's start with this one: imaginary sub-$2 gasoline. Trump, talking about gas prices, said at a cabinet meeting on Tuesday, I was right.
Quote, "There are some places it's $2. It broke $2 at a couple locations in the South."
I actually heard this one and fell for it and repeated this exact lie, saying, listen, Americans are happy as long as the gas is sub $2. I guess the gas companies, or the oil companies, lowered the prices to make Trump look good. Turns out, it wasn't even true. I fell for one of Trump's lies. Hook, line, and sinker. Not true, just as Trump's numerous previous claims of $2 or less gas haven't been true. There was no state whose average price for regular gas on Tuesday was below Mississippi's $2.69 per gallon. According to data published by AAA, and the firm Gas Buddy said it did not see a single station out of the tens of thousands it tracks across the country that was selling a gallon for $2 or less at the time Trump spoke. Some drivers get special discounts, though. The AAA national average on Tuesday was $3.19 per gallon, a whole $1.19 or 30+% more than what Trump claimed. An impossible 1,500% reduction in prescription drug prices. Trump claimed in early August,
"You know, we've cut drug prices by 1,200, 1,300, 1,400, 1,500%.
I love how he just lists several magnitude rises of percentages as if it's like a range of reasonable, approximation. I don't mean 50%. I don't mean 14. I mean 1,500%. CNN and others pointed out that this is not only inaccurate, but does not make mathematical sense, since a 100% price cut would make the drugs free, and a cut of 1,200% or more would presumably mean Americans would be getting paid to buy medications. Yes, this is unironically the way Trump thinks. He does not think for even a second about what he says. If it is that obviously stupid with even a little bit of critical thinking, he will not pick up on that and he will say it. Remember, Americans don't have common sense. That's why they value it so much all of a sudden. Trump has continued using the fake figures anyway. He promised Monday that
I'm going to be reducing drug prices by 1,400 to 1,500%.
Then Tuesday that
we're not talking about a 25% cut or a 50%. We're talking about a 1,500% cut.
All these claims have been persistently a lie. You know, guys, if you're enjoying this video so far and you want to help it reach more people and not get choked out by the algorithm, then consider leaving a like and a comment. It really does help a lot. If we can hit 1,000 likes and 500 comments within 24 hours, we will beat the algorithm, and this video might even choke out some of the conservative content trying to blind people from the truth of what this president's administration is doing to this country. So leave a like, leave a comment, and subscribe if you want to see more from me. I really appreciate it. That said, though, let's get back into it. Quote, no inflation amid continued inflation. There is inflation in the United States. Prices were 2.7% higher in July than they were a year prior, and 0.2% higher than they were in June. One can debate how good or bad those figures are, but Trump said Tuesday, as he has repeatedly this summer, that there's no inflation. Keep in mind, by the way, the vast majority of Americans don't understand inflation. They don't recognize that the Federal Reserve tries to aim for roughly a 1.8 to 2.2% inflation year by year inflation rate, as that's generally the healthy amount expected from a growing economy with a constantly rising GDP, which our GDP is usually constantly rising under normal circumstances. What we generally worry about is when the inflation rate rises out of nowhere, or not out of nowhere, but at a crazy rate, above 2% or more. This means that the Federal Reserve usually has to adjust interest rates in response to this, so Americans are not just immediately getting bankrupted, and companies don't also immediately get bankrupted, have to default on loans and what have you, or take out. It also makes it so Americans are not afraid of taking out loans when they need to. These things are important, but it's not the job of the president. It's kind of like the president advises or gets advised on these things, which means Trump's ass does not understand a single goddamn thing about inflation. He thinks 0% inflation, good. Any amount of inflation, bad. The lower inflation, the better. That is how Trump sees it. And unfortunately, because Americans are, as a rule, retarded, that's also how Americans see it. Any inflation rate whatsoever existing that's not 0% is bad in the eyes of most Americans. And Trump plays on that with his own stupidity quite effectively. Trump briefly used softer rhetoric in mid-August, declaring that our inflation is down to a perfect number, a beautiful number, hardly any at all.
Our inflation is down to a perfect number, a beautiful number, hardly any at all.
This subjective language didn't hold. The very next day, Trump returned to his regular assertion that we don't have inflation. Lie number 4, the non-uniqueness of U.S. mail-in voting. To support his proposal to eliminate the use of mail-in ballots, Trump last Monday revived his false claim that the U.S. is the world's only country where mail-in voting exists. The claim was promptly debunked again by CNN and others. Dozens of countries use mail-in ballots, including Canada, the United Kingdom, Germany, Australia, and Switzerland. Trump then repeated the claim in an interview with a supportive radio host 3 days later.
We're the only one in the world that uses them,
he said. Just another lie. Whatever Trump needs to say to make what he's doing sound like it makes sense, he'll claim it. And most people will not fact check him, and that's all that he needs, is most people not fact checking him. That's all it takes. The water Trump says he sent to Los Angeles, quote, he didn't, or parentheses, he didn't, by turning a quote-unquote valve that doesn't exist. I love this one. We covered this in depth during the California LA fires. On Tuesday, Trump told his usual story about how
now they have water in Los Angeles because I turned the valve
to send the city water instead of having that quote-unquote valve direct the water to the Pacific Ocean. Itchy nose tonight. The story is nonsense, as experts in California water policy have pointed out for months. First, there is no single valve that controls California water flows. Second, what Trump actually did in late January and early February was send billions of gallons pointlessly released from 2 dams in one part of the state's Central Valley to another part of that valley, more than 100 miles north of Los Angeles. The water did not go to Los Angeles, which has no automatic connection to the dams. I think something that people are forgetting to mention with this, and I will never let go of because it is the most funny thing ever, is Donald Trump repeatedly said, let the water flow down to California. Let the water flow down to LA. And he's talking about places hundreds of miles north of LA, to be clear, which seems to indicate to me that while Trump recognizes the Earth as a globe, he seems to believe that south is objective down and is the direction that gravity pulls water, and that water flows south towards the equator or down, because Trump repeatedly indicated, despite there being no method by which this would happen, that the water would flow down to LA, meaning he seems to believe once you release a water flow, it just starts finding its way down south. I guess Trump believes all the dams and whatnot are blocking the natural north to south water flow because, you know, south is down, north is up. Lamau, he definitely failed elementary. I definitely think that's how he thought it worked. There's no way that's not how he thought it worked. Of course, there's the 2020 election denial stuff. Approaching 5 years after he legitimately lost the legitimate 2020 election, Trump continues to lie about it. He referred Monday to former President Joe Biden as
a guy that got in there with a fraudulent election,
and said Thursday that,
I knew the election was rigged, and now we found that out definitively, as you can see. My DOJ that I hired and appointed says that I won, fair and square. We investigated ourselves and found no wrongdoing.
Nobody has found that out because it is definitively false. That non-existent monument law. Trump also repeated another lie he had been telling since 2020. His assertion that he signed a law or statute that year that imposed an automatic sentence of 10 years in prison to people who damage monuments. CNN and others have been reporting since 2020 that this is not what happened. Trump actually issued an executive order that directed the Attorney General to prioritize investigations and prosecutions of people who damage government-owned monuments and to prosecute offenders to the fullest extent allowed under existing federal law, which allowed judges to impose a maximum sentence of 10 years in prison. Trump has kept telling the false story anyway, upon signing an executive order Monday telling the Attorney General to try to find a way, without violating the First Amendment, to crack down on people who have burned the American flag. The president claimed without any apparent basis that offenders would now get 1 year in jail, and he repeated his old fiction about signing harsh monument legislation.
Just like when I signed the Statue and Monument Act,
he said,
10 years in jail if you hurt any of our beautiful monuments.
He is literally making up laws that don't exist, that he has not passed. A phony Ukraine aid total. For months, Trump has claimed the U.S. has given
$350 billion
in wartime aid to Ukraine, even though numerous fact checks noted that this is a wild exaggeration. Trump made the $350 billion claim 5 times at a single event on Monday. The real figure is much smaller than Trump's number. A German think tank that has closely tracked wartime aid to Ukraine says the U.S. allocated about $133 billion to Ukraine and had committed about $5 billion more from late January 2022 through June 2025. The website of the U.S. Government Inspector General overseeing the federal Ukraine response says the U.S. had disbursed about $90 billion for the response through March 2025. And had appropriated about $95 billion more, including money that was spent in the U.S. in broader Europe rather than Ukraine itself. So, like, fractional amounts to what Trump claimed. When CNN asked the White House earlier this month about Trump's claims that the U.S. had provided Ukraine itself with $350 billion, an official tried to justify the figure by adding a bunch of things that are not actually aid to Ukraine. including, absurdly, the cost of U.S. inflation to American households after the Russian invasion. Literally any way he can twist something into an effective lie, he will do it. A fictional story about Biden in South Korea. Trump repeated his long-debunked $350 billion Ukraine aid figure while sitting beside Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky last week. Then this Monday, he repeated this long-debunked story about U.S. relations with South Korea while sitting beside South Korean President Lee Jae-myung. Speaking of the presence of more than 26,000 American military personnel in South Korea, Trump said,
"As you know, South Korea agreed to pay for that during my last term. And then when Biden came in, they complained to Biden that I wasn't a nice person and he agreed not to pay. He gave up billions of dollars. We were getting paid billions of dollars and then Biden ended that for whatever reason. It's unbelievable that he did."
This is a reversal of reality. Trump loves these, just like flipping the actual situation and saying the reverse of what really happened did happen. Biden didn't agree to let South Korea stop sharing the cost of the U.S. military force in the country. Rather, under Biden, South Korea signed 2 cost-sharing agreements with the U.S., one in 2021 and one in 2024, that both included substantial South Korean payment increases. Literally just the reverse of the truth on that one. And finally, a disproven tale Trump claimed had been proven. Trump told a story on Monday in which he claimed a Democratic governor with whom he had been trading public barbs this month, Governor Wes Moore of Maryland, told him during a behind-the-scenes conversation last year, "Sir, you're the greatest president of my lifetime," quote-unquote. The story was disproven by Trump-friendly Fox News the very same day. Turned out that a Fox documentary show had recorded the conversation in which Moore didn't say anything close to what Trump claimed. That's so fucking unfortunate for Trump that they recorded the real combo, and it turns out he never said what Trump said he said. That's wild, huh? Crazy how Trump would just say that, right? Trump was undeterred by the footage. He told a similar story on Tuesday, this time falsely saying Moore had told him, "Sir, you're the greatest president," and adding they caught him on camera. In reality, it was Trump who the camera had caught in a lie. Sir, you do not have a small penis. I think I actually want to add an 11th lie. That's right, guys. I'm going to add an extra one not mentioned here, an 11th lie. That is Trump and Vance's persistent claims that there are 22 million illegal immigrants in America. Hilariously, the true number is 11 million. Every single official statistic agrees it is about 11 million. Trump and Vance, at some point, their campaign decided that 11 million was not a high enough or scary enough number, so they straight up doubled it. They doubled it exactly. Double 11 and you get 22. So they claim incessantly that it is 22 million illegal immigrants in America. That is how hilarious and shameless their lying is. They will perfectly double a real number to make it sound scarier for their own means. Never forget, folks, we are dealing with demons, and demons lie, because lying is a sin. Donald Trump is, unironically a demonic presence. I believe this. He is, Jesus and God hate Trump. They do. And he hates God and Jesus. If you like Jesus or God, then you should also hate Trump. Anyway, folks, if you enjoyed this segment, yep, he's fucking Satan. If you enjoyed this segment, if you found it entertaining, educational, or enjoyable in any way whatsoever, then please consider leaving a like and a comment down below. Regardless of how you support my content, it helps to push it out to more people, helps to beat the algorithm and all the right-wing stuff that's being flooded out there right now that you just can't escape from. Hopefully, if you like and comment, it'll boost my stuff in the algorithm, so consider doing so. Maybe get me to 1,000 likes and 500 comments in this video within 24 hours. We will definitely beat the algorithm then, and I'd really appreciate it. Subscribe and ring the bell icon if you haven't already so that YouTube actually tells you when I go live or upload new videos in the future. And if you want to see more from me on other platforms, follow my social medias linked down below, particularly my fan Discord, as that is the main hub of my fan base and community. And on top of that, I host weekly call-in streams, watch parties, movie nights, and all sorts of stuff there every week, every Friday. So if you don't want to miss anything, that is the place to be. Finally, If you want to support me directly, financially, help me keep the lights on and a roof above my head here at the Xander Hall studio, then please consider donating, subscribing, or gifting a sub on my website, xanderhall.com/live, or support me through YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, StreamElements, Patreon, or buy some custom Xander Hall merch through the Streamlabs link down below. Regardless of how you support me, thank you all so much for watching, and as always, have a good one.